What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, specifically in our series of reviews covering the Land Before Time series. If you're just now hopping on, well, we're talking about the 6th film out of 14, The Land Before Time 6, The Secret of Saurus Rock. Coming out in 1998 and directed by Charles Grosvenor, once again, who directed the last film, you once again have a returning cast, people like Thomas Dekker, Miriam Flynn, Kenneth Mars, Andi McAfee, Rob Paulsen, and many, many more, with Michael Tavera returning as the film's composer. It is getting honestly difficult to talk about these movies with each installment, as there is a big samey energy from movie to movie. But before we get too far into this, I want to say a big thanks to you guys for stopping here to hear our thoughts on these movies, and once again say a big thanks to my guest for this entire series, and that is my buddy Mike of the channel Did You See That. If you guys like movie reviews, live streams, and the various things you can find here on this channel, you can find a lot of that over on Mike's channel as well, and he's got tons of different kinds of series. He's a huge Back to the Future fan as well. He's got some great content over there, so I highly recommend going and giving him some love, and you guys can find the link to his channel down below in the description box. And like I mentioned, we're talking now about the 6th installment into the franchise known as The Land Before Time, and I won't do what I've done in the last few where I've given a bit of a setup for what we've done so far. I highly recommend checking out these videos that we've done. It's been a lot of fun. I have a playlist here on the channel that you guys can check out that has all the other 5 videos up to this point where we've covered all of the sequels after the original film, and the original still being my absolute favorite, a film I remember growing up watching, had a very special place in my heart, and a film that both Mike and I really enjoyed. And the sequels unfortunately have not lived up to that original film. There's definitely been some positives, some negatives across the board, but yeah, nothing has touched how good that first film was. So the question is, how is the 6th film, The Secret of Saurus Rock? Well, unfortunately, it's a lot of the same. This movie opens up with the kids being told a story by Grandpa Longneck, where he's pretty much telling them about this individual known as the Lone Dinosaur, a big long-necked dinosaur that was once in the Great Valley and ended up saving all the citizens of the Great Valley from some sharp tooths, ended up getting a scar across his face after this fight, and ended up saving everybody in the Great Valley. And because of his efforts, there was actually a big rock that rose from the ground that looked just like this dinosaur, that if you messed with it, would lead you to have bad luck. So Littlefoot and the gang love hearing this story from Grandpa Longneck, and they're really into it, and the movie opens and they have this legend they're being told, and this is a legend that the Grandpa Longneck has been told himself, that has been passed down over the course of time. And not too long into the film, as I'm sure you can expect from a thing like this, a very mysterious dinosaur appears, who does end up being this dinosaur. And something that I thought was pretty interesting is they never actually say he is the lone dinosaur, but he has the scar on his face. His name is Doc, and he has a long neck. He saves Littlefoot a couple of times throughout the course of the film, and then at the very end, both the lone dinosaur, Doc, as well as Littlefoot's grandfather have to work together to fight some sharp teeth monsters, some dinosaurs, some T-Rex that are coming after Littlefoot and the gang. Outside of that, they do end up going and messing with this big rock known as Saurus Rock, which does end up causing bad luck to the Great Valley, or at least that's what Littlefoot and the gang think, after 2 Triceratops that were introduced to in this movie, known as Dinah and Dana, end up going over there and causing some trouble, having Littlefoot and the gang having to go rescue them. They end up damaging this rock. Some bad luck starts happening in the Great Valley, and then in the mix of all this, you have this guy named Doc, who clearly is the lone dinosaur. Dana and Dinah, not a huge fan of those characters. They're these random Triceratops that were just introduced, these little babies that Sarah has to take care of the entire movie. Didn't even know that Sarah had family outside of her dad in these movies, so I don't even know whose kids these are. You never see their parents at all, but Sarah is tasked with taking care of them the entire movie, and they were a pretty annoying addition to the roundup of characters here. And that's basically the premise of this film. You have this lone dinosaur that was what the kids heard in the story before. He ends up showing up, ends up saving Littlefoot and the gang throughout the course of the film, and then they end up messing with this rock that causes bad luck, and now they have to try to find a way to reverse that bad luck. It's a pretty simple premise. Again, it's once again one of those things where the parents are all arguing with one another, they're trying to figure out what to do, they're just bickering, and the kids decide to just go fuck off and find some way to try to save the day, and in a way they kind of do with the helps of the adults and Doc, the lone dinosaur, later on in the movie. Now, before I get into the things I didn't like about it and some of the things I did enjoy about it, let's go ahead and pass it on over to my buddy Mike from Did You See That, and we'll get back to my thoughts in just a moment.
Hey Perez, my brother, thank you so much for having me back once again to talk about The Land Before Time 6, this time, The Secret of Saurus Rock, which came out in 1998. Once again, directed by Charles Grosvenor, and we've got kind of the same voice cast as such, but I believe Littlefoot is actually different this time. I don't know what the hell they decide to even want to do with the series so far. So again, yeah, you know, kind of similar to my last collab with Anthony, I'm not going to spend too much time here, I'm not going to waste your time, I'm not going to talk about the plot or cast too much or anything like that, because I'm sure Anthony's probably already covered that. But yeah, what I can honestly say about The Secret of Saurus Rock is, yeah, once again, just kind of like a mediocre installment. I found at times this movie to be boring and kind of like uninspired in a way, but I will give praise where it is due here. I really liked the opening of this movie, where they're talking about this legend and about the kind of sharp tooth with the dinosaur, and how there's like this one kind of creature that managed to defeat it all those years ago, and kind of like a little legacy and kind of like a mythology kind of story, which kind of leads into this installment. So I will give them praise where I felt like this was a little bit different, and there was some elements here that I did like and I felt like worked better than the previous installment. Maybe I could have been with the voice actors kind of like finding their feet, or Charles Grosvenor taking over the series at this point, kind of finding his own feet and delivering something a little bit different. I will give praise where it's due in those departments. The songs, once again, aren't memorable, unfortunately. None here that I thought, wow, I'm going to listen to Spotify tomorrow. That's just not going to happen. Yeah, I felt at times like this movie was dragging a little bit, and that's a little bit weird to say, because these movies are only like between like an hour and 10 and like an hour and like 20, like maximum. So it's not even like a long run time, but it may be because I'm not exactly the target audience. I've said this in every collab with Anthony, and I'm going to keep on saying it probably for the rest of the installments, that yes, these are purely made for kids. Can adults find some enjoyment in them? Sure, there's odd moments here and there. I thought, okay, well that worked really well. Yeah, I like that. Okay, well let's keep it with this tone of the movie, or let's see this play out, and how will that play out? But as soon as we get those kind of moments where we think, or I think, should I say, something's going to happen and something good is going to happen and they're going to keep this momentum, they shifted to baby-fy the moment, which is a little bit of a shame. Maybe looking back now, and the series creators at the time thought, okay, we're making these installments, will these hold up down the line? Yeah, probably not, if I'm being completely honest with you. But yeah, besides that kind of like mythology that at the beginning, and kind of like the end sequence, I actually like the end sequence. I'll give it that. I'm not going to say spoilers for anyone who's not seen this movie. Yeah, the end sequence I quite liked. I felt like it wrapped up quite nicely and kind of leans into that mythology part at the beginning. That's all I will say. Besides that though, nothing really different here yet. Sarah is still a stone cold bitch who I don't like. I really wish at this point they would kill that character off, if I'm being completely honest. I just think that this movie and this series needs to get rid of that music, because it's not working. It doesn't seem as if it's getting any better, to the point of these are going to be catchy, memorable songs, and sometimes the songs also kind of feel forced and just thrown in to the movie, which is a bit weird and a bit of a shame, if I'm being completely honest with you, because I think it kind of takes away from the movie. But what do I know? I might be just an absolute klutz and people love it. I really don't know. Anyway, Anthony, thank you so much for having me on, brother, for yet again for another installment. We've got quite a few more to go, I will say that. But I'm intrigued as to where this series will go, and I'm really hoping that it's really going to pick up, because at this point in time, I need something to give me a boost to keep going for this series, apart from doing a collab with you. But yeah, brother, back over to you and your main thoughts on The Secret of Saurus Rock. And once again, thank you for having me on. Till next time, guys.
Thank you so much, Mike, for joining me here in another video, my friend. Always a pleasure to have you on, and I've been having a lot of fun talking about these movies, even if it is getting a little bit more difficult to talk about these movies with each passing installment. I definitely agree with you on some of the positives and the negatives here. It seems like we're in a pretty similar place here, and you know, like Mike has mentioned in all these videos, like I've mentioned in these videos as well, clearly this is, you know, a set of movies that was made for a very young audience, not only just kids, but younger than kids, just like straight toddlers. You know, this is for a very, very young audience. But the reason that I think it's fun to go back and revisit these is that because these were coming out when I was a kid, and I still love so much stuff that I used to watch back in the day that even if I revisit it today, it still takes me back to that time. And in a similar way, there's definitely still a vibe with that. But again, I want to say a big thanks to my buddy Mike for joining me here. You guys can find the link to his channel down below in the description box. Go give him some love, let him know I sent you. But as far as my overall thoughts on this movie, it's a lot of the same, and I think that that's where I'm struggling with this franchise, is it doesn't feel like there's a whole lot about this movie that stands out and feels different from the previous films. I think the most notable thing is the idea of this legendary dinosaur that is appearing over the course of the movie, but the general consensus, the general thing in this movie is so similar. There's a threat to the Great Valley, to the way of life of all these characters. The parents are bickering and the kids find some way to save the day. Sometimes they get into more trouble that the parents have to come save them from, but in the end of the day ends up getting saved because of the kids' initiative. So they're definitely following that formula that has made these films work up to this point for the most part, and I just hope moving forward, especially as we get into the installments that came out in the 2000s, that the animation and the story starts to pop off a little bit more and starts to get a little bit more exciting or a little bit more different. As Mike mentioned, the character of Sarah the Triceratops is still a stone cold bitch, completely unlikable, and she's just one of those characters that I just never really can find myself getting into. It's the character who never learns, who is constantly rude to all of her friends throughout the course of the movies, is always accepted in the end by those friends who she did wrong the entire movie or belittled or treated poorly, and then the next movie she's exactly the same. I don't understand at all why Littlefoot and the rest of the gang spend any time with her at all, but I guess that's just how cartoons can be at times. Like all the other installments in this franchise, you have some musical numbers, and yeah, I gotta agree with Mike when I say that the musical numbers here are nothing that are really exciting. I don't think there's anyone in this movie that's necessarily bad. You know, at a certain point when you're 6 movies into the franchise and you're hearing these musical numbers get started, every time one is getting started, especially the first one of each movie, my fiance is always like, oh, here we go. We almost forget at times that these are musicals. And so when the musical numbers kick in, it's just always like super cheesy. And sometimes they're cute, right? Sometimes the musical numbers in these films have the advantage of being just cute, where you can watch it and go, oh, that was cute. I can see how a young kid would watch that and enjoy it. And that's kind of how I try to frame my outlook on these movies, is not only how I enjoy them now as a 30-year-old guy, but also as somebody who enjoys stuff that's made for a younger audience, because I feel like a big kid at heart. I can put my head in that place where I can be like, oh, this is cute. I can see how kids would like this. As somebody who critiques things and critiques film, I try to recognize that where the target audience was from anything that I watch or talk about here, so I can totally recognize where there's cute moments of comedy or lines of dialogue or some cool visuals, something that like a kid can look at the screen and go like, wow, or just be invested in or have a laugh with. And so I try to put myself in that place when I'm watching these things. And yeah, you know, I think that the songs in this movie are definitely passable. There's been songs in previous installments in this franchise that are just bad, like really, really bad lyrically and melodically, but you know, I thought this was passable. Nothing crazy, like Mike said, nothing I'm putting on my Spotify playlist. As for the animation, yeah, you know, again, I would say the animation's a little bit better than the last film. It's getting a little bit better, but it by no means is this top tier 2D animation from this time frame. By the time we were getting to the late 90s, you know, I think of movies like Disney's Tarzan, which of course had a far bigger budget than this, but yeah, you know, this is very standard, straight to video, charming for its time animation from the 90s. I enjoy it because I think because we have such a lack of 2D animation today, going back and watching these movies from this specific time, it dates it, but it gives it a charm that you just don't see in films today, which does allow me to enjoy the animation in the film a lot more than I would if I was watching this probably for the very first time back then as an adult. Whereas today, as somebody who grew up on animation of that time, grew up on the straight to video sequels of movies when I was a kid at that time, I can watch a movie like this and appreciate that we've come so far now that 2D animation like this is just not present at all, and it is something that I kind of wish we saw more of in the modern day. And that's pretty much all I have to say on this one. I don't have an abundance to say on The Land Before Time 6, The Secret of Saurus Rock. I think that there's a lot of samey energy from the last 4 or 5 installments. I think the first one is still without a doubt the best one. And it's interesting because in some ways, some of the animation in the sequels was a little bit better, but I think that there was a charm to that first film overall and its story and the animation of its time that I would argue that the animation of that first film is still the best, you know? And then you have, you know, the musical score here that is done by Michael Tavera, who did the last one as well, and I think that his score is fine. You know, it's cute, it's for, you know, it knows what it is, it's not going over the top, but a lot of the moments that really work when it comes to the score is just reprising that music from James Horner from the first film. So I do hope moving forward that some composer comes in and is able to like write a score that really heightens the movie the way that the original film did. And yeah, that's all I really have to say on this one. So again, a big thanks to you guys for watching, and a big thanks to my buddy Mike of Did You See That for joining me here in another video. As usual, the link to his channel is going to be down below in the description box, so go give him some love and let him know I sent you. But for all of you guys, I want you guys to chime in down below. Are you a fan of this franchise? Are you not a fan of this franchise? Have you gotten to the 6th installment like we have, or did you stop watching these way beforehand? Whatever the case may be, leave a comment down below, hit that like button, subscribe for more videos as we continue our trek all the way to the 14th film in this franchise, which I'm hoping by that point that I'm more impressed than I have been. But a big thanks to you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one, all right? Bye-bye.